Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started here shortly. We are recording from the get-go, so we have an on-time webinar, but I do know not everyone joins right at 1 o'clock, so we'll just give a minute or so as folks are joining in. Very excited for today's webinar. We have a lot to showcase across the nation about what folks are doing to make MyPlate a household name. All right. So I do want to get started today with just really welcoming everyone here and really giving a heartfelt thank you for all our federal panelists and also all of our MyPlate teams who are here to showcase all the work they're doing with the variety of teams and participants that they're bringing to the table today. We have a lot to flash talk across the nation, and we really appreciate them doing this in a concise way, but no, you might have many questions for them that we won't necessarily get to in a 90-minute webinar. So really, we hope today is a lot of food for thought for getting us started to build collaborative relationships across the country. So please don't be shy to email me or many of our participants who gave their emails, or I'll connect you after. Just know we really do want to make sure you get your answers, your questions to your answers today live if possible, but if not, we'll make sure we're connected accordingly. At NIFA, we take a lot of effort to integrate diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility into all we do. That's reflected in our closed captioner here today and our use of our non-discrimination statement really at the start of all we do. So please learn more at the website provided, and we're always open to feedback. So if there's ways we can do better to serve you, please don't be shy to ask. I want to start off with today's webinar's kind of background. NIFA really was at the forefront of really launching our food and nutrition security team to really support one of the Secretary's core priorities to tackle food and nutrition insecurity. And part of that work was launching this webinar series, now in our 21st edition. This is just one of the core priorities that the Secretary works on. We had a prior edition where we highlighted our work with nutrition and climate. You can see with all we do, part of that work is advancing racial justice, equity, opportunity, and rural prosperity. And again, particularly in our prior editions on local and regional food systems, you saw work we're doing, particularly at NIFA, to create more and better markets. Just for meeting logistics, I really do want to emphasize this is being recorded. So if you have to jump off or want to kind of hear your team's presentation later or get it cut out, it is recorded, and we will provide a YouTube ADA accessible version. So it does take us a couple weeks just to kind of create that version. So please be patient, but do know once we have it ready, we will get it to you. We have Zoom support if you need that. So please let us know, reach out via chat if you need the number again. And then again, we are in Zoom webinar mode, so the chat should be disabled. And we're really encouraging you, really just for ease of moderation, to put any questions, comments in the Zoom QA box. And that way could help us navigate which team those questions are going to, whether we're answering them live today or in a follow-up question. I really do want to emphasize our webinar series page. Really with the work of a great team, including Shelly, who's here today, and Yamalis, and Andy from our web team, we've really now created an up-to-date webinar series page with all 20 editions, like this 21st one will be ready soon, with all 20 editions where we have our ADA accessible slides and audio available, and really a plethora of resources. So please don't be shy to go back to prior editions and also give us suggestions if there's something you want to hear more about in future editions. We always love to hear the things you're needing to hear from us and or would like to share to us. I do want to emphasize we're not going to go in depth about funding opportunities. A lot of NIFA webinars are really lifting up how we can help you. But today we're just going to really note we have a lot of relevant resources here in our AFRI program, our Agriculture Food Research Initiative. And then we also have a variety of non-AFRI funding opportunities like community food programs and EFNEP, which is really going to be highlighted today. Again, we're here to help. So if these are funding opportunities you want to learn more about, please don't be shy to reach out to me. But just know today is really about us hearing the work in action and not necessarily us kind of exploring the relevant funding opportunities to support this work. Now, I have the distinct pleasure to pass this off to Dr. Dionne Toombs, who's really going to formally kick off today's meeting. Dr. Toombs has been a leader to me and also mentor to me for many years, both in the nutrition community when she was at NIFA and then also in her leadership role at the Office of the Chief Scientist. It's a pleasure to have her back at NIFA. Shelly's going to put her formal bio into the panelist link or into the Zoom link or into the chat links, I should say. But really, I just want to give a heartfelt welcome to Dr. Toombs and really just indicate she came in as an acting director role and now formally is staying with us on as the Associate Director of Programs here at NIFA. And in that, she's been a tremendous leader and supporter of our nutrition security work. And then particularly when she was asked to help us with this secretary's goal of making MyPlate a household name. I will emphasize part of her support is the detail role that I play in terms of being at NIFA and the National Science Liaison role, but really over the last 3 years being on a formal detail with the Food and Nutrition Service to support our efforts to tackle food and nutrition security, which, as Caree will say, includes the White House conference work, but also, again, his particular goal around MyPlate. So greatly have appreciated Dr. Toombs' leadership and support of the detail, but more so just really pulling across all of our agency's assets to make MyPlate a household name. So with that, I'm going to pass this off to Dr. Toombs and again, give a heartfelt welcome to her today.
Thank you, Dr. Flashiker, and for all of your support as you serve on this detail assignment with FNS. And this partnership has been so valuable to us to advancing the Secretary's priority to tackle food and nutrition insecurity, as you have shared on the slide previously. And we are so proud at NIFA's contributions to advancing food and nutrition security. And last year, as you heard, I was acting director for the agency, and I had an opportunity to highlight the outstanding achievements of our nutrition security team during our agency award ceremony as one of USDA's Research, Education, and Economics Mission Area Team awardees. Assembled in the early stages of the Biden-Harris administration in January 2021, it is absolutely amazing how this team has grown to more than 80 members and is made up of talented staff from across our institutes and offices here at NIFA. And in less than 2 years, this team has been at the forefront of responding to the Secretary's priority to tackle food and nutrition insecurity. The team's work coordinate and promise to promote NIFA's more than $220 million investment in research, education, and extension, and innovation through 5 key nutrition programs. In addition, the team helps to leverage more than 20 NIFA programs overall with the ability to help prioritize nutrition security. Again, I am proud of the nutrition security team and all of our priority teams here at NIFA and how they collaborate and work across the department on agricultural sciences and using an integrated approach through research, education, and extension to help us make lives better for everyone who lives in this country. And this includes a variety of ways we are working to reach the Secretary's goal to make MyPlate a household name. And at NIFA, we recognize that we have a lot of access, particularly our extensive network through land-grant universities, and they can help us achieve MyPlate goals. And during today's Flash Talks, you will see several of our relationships with land-grant universities in action. And to advance food and nutrition security and make MyPlate a household name, we have a lot of work ahead of us. But I am excited for how we can do more together. I will now pass this off to Dr. Caree Cotwright, who will share an overview of how the Center of Nutrition Policy and Promotion is working to make MyPlate a household name and using events like this today to highlight success stories, hear ideas for improvements and innovations in the work ahead. I look forward to hearing about the work ahead between USDA and all those presenting and listening today. Have a great meeting and please keep up the great work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Toombs, for your incredible mentorship and partnership in helping us to reach Secretary Vilsack's goal to make MyPlate a household name. It's so exciting to me. So hello, everyone. I am on leave from the University of Georgia, where I work very closely with our EFNEP and SNAP-Ed teams. So the work featured here today is very close to my heart. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to hear from many of the teams featured today during a MyPlate engagement exercise at the National EFNEP Annual Conference. We heard so many success stories. We heard constructive input on ways we can improve and ideas for ways we can do better together. Today builds on that exercise by taking that exercise virtual to expand the reach of those who can present and attend. In addition, we are using the Flash Talks today to listen and learn more about the work across the nation and to make MyPlate a household name. It is truly a privilege for me to be here today and to further engage all of you and the larger networks and communities you represent. Our efforts are all centered around advancing food and nutrition security. We want to implement the national strategy for the Hunger, Nutrition, and Health Conference that was recently held that you heard mentioned earlier. And the conference or the strategy is designed to do three main things and reach three main goals. And they are to end hunger, improve nutrition and physical activity, and reduce diet-related diseases and disparities. And what we'll talk about a lot today is how to make MyPlate a household name. In my role as Director of Nutrition Security and Health Equity at USDA, I lead a whole of department approach to addressing the interrelated issues of food insecurity and diet-related diseases. As this group knows well, these issues are preventable and solvable. Building on and complementing our long-standing efforts to address food security, Secretary Vilsack made it one of USDA's core priorities about 2 years ago to expand our efforts to advance food and nutrition security. Now, I want to make sure you know what that means. Here at USDA, nutrition security means that everyone in our country has consistent and equitable access to healthy, safe, and affordable food that is essential for optimal health and well-being. Our approach to tackling food and nutrition insecurity aims to recognize that structural inequities make it hard for many people to eat healthy and be physically active, and emphasize taking an equity lens to all of our efforts. Grounded in science, we are using a 4-pillar approach that includes meaningful support, connecting everyone in this country with healthy, safe, and affordable food, developing, translating, and enacting nutrition science through partnership, and prioritizing equity every step of the way. The work that each of you do through EFNEP and SNAP-Ed helps us to maximize our potential across these 4 pillars. It's also integral to our success to implementing the actions USDA has put forth in the 5 pillars that make up the national strategy. Today, I'm going to highlight where EFNEP and SNAP-Ed can collaborate with our MyPlate team, illustrated here, to accelerate progress in making MyPlate a household name. Now, I just want to give a brief background on what exactly MyPlate is and why it is so important to our efforts to advance food and nutrition security and accelerate the progress on the White House goals, which are again to end hunger, improve nutrition and physical activity, and reduce diet-related diseases and disparities. Starting with our foundation to all federal food and nutrition policy, the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, or the DGAs for short. The DGAs provide science-based advice on what to eat and drink to promote health, to help reduce the risk of chronic disease, and to meet nutrient needs. Then the DGAs are translated into consumer messages in the form of MyPlate. MyPlate provides the guidance, tools, and resources on how to choose foods and how to eat for health. And we try to do so in ways that are an inspiration and meet customers or consumers where they are. Without question, EFNEP and SNAP-Ed and each of you here today plays a critical role in helping us expand our reach across the country. When I transitioned to public service at USDA, I was just really impressed to learn about how we are reaching others to engage our consumers in working with MyPlate because it is our federal consumer symbol for healthy eating. I was also impressed with the broad range of consumer resources and digital tools the MyPlate team is working on to better reach the needs of today's consumers. Some additional nuts and bolts about MyPlate are that it's a visual reminder to make healthy choices from each of the 5 food groups. MyPlate.gov, if you've not visited, offers tips and resources that support healthy dietary patterns. These consumer tools help translate those 2020 to 2025 dietary guidelines into actionable resources. And we will update these tools as needed once the 2025 to 2030 DGAs are released. MyPlate also includes an innovative public-private partnership initiative that was established in 2009. As of today, we have 141 national strategic partners across a variety of sectors, and we are continuing to grow. And a hallmark of MyPlate is ongoing and strong relationships with national public health and nutrition organizations. One last final fun fact about MyPlate is that MyPlate was launched by former First Lady Michelle Obama and Secretary Vilsack back in 2011, and it replaced the food pyramid. Let me reemphasize that MyPlate replaced the food pyramid. But we know that all of you listening today still hear a lot from consumers about the food pyramid. We all have an uncle or aunt that knows everything about healthy eating. So we have our work cut out for us in making MyPlate a household name. Today, I will highlight ways we are empowering each of you to help us make MyPlate a household name and to put our sweet food pyramid to bed. This is a charge from the Secretary to make MyPlate a household name, and he helped secure support for us to launch a forthcoming new national consumer campaign. Also to foster strong collaborations across USDA programs like EFNEP and SNAP-Ed, and to stimulate new and enhanced partnerships. I want to recognize we are aware of the marketing challenges to make MyPlate a household name. I have 3 young girls, so I know competition for consumers' attention is intense and demands innovation. And the government, as each of you know, through your frontline work with EFNEP and SNAP-Ed, is outspent by marketing for unhealthy food and beverages. So we've got to be creative. But our collective power is impressive. Just within EFNEP and SNAP-Ed, your reach and impact are well documented, and our ability to grow is tremendous. Recent surveys indicate that only 1 in 4 consumers are aware of MyPlate. So let me say that again, only 1 in 4 consumers are aware of MyPlate. So we have work to do, but it's so exciting. 1 in 4, and I'm sure each of you can report similar experiences about people not necessarily being aware of MyPlate in the field. So what is our vision for making MyPlate a household name? Let's talk about how you can help. As illustrated here, we are working and need your help to make MyPlate highly visible across multiple sectors in everyday life. This includes, as you see, these many different categories: education, transportation, technology, retail, media and entertainment, healthcare, and especially at the community level. Now, let's take a moment to envision what this would look like from a consumer lens. We have here Nicole, who is a 55-year-old SNAP participant from Atlanta, Georgia, which is my hometown. So I'll just throw in a good go dogs for all my Georgia folks. Now, Nicole's day would start with MyPlate by finding a budget-friendly savings on Shop Simple with MyPlate to plan her shopping trip later in the day. On her stops along the way, she encounters MyPlate at her place of worship during a health fair. She hears a PSA on the radio and sees MyPlate signage in the aisles of the grocery store. Each of our primary promotional efforts are designed with USDA Federal Nutrition Assistance Program participants in mind. It's one of our goals that USDA program participants will become more aware of and gain greater access to tools to maximize their benefits and make affordable, healthy eating choices. And we want to educate participants on the why and how it's never too early or too late to make small changes, because we know that they add up. We have a lot of innovative tools to help, like our MyPlate quiz, MyPlate plan that personalizes recommendations, like our Start Simple with MyPlate app, and you can even ask Alexa about MyPlate. Many of you may not be familiar with that. Put simply, we're looking at all the ways that we can reach consumers where they already are, where they shop, where they live, where they learn, where they pray, where they play, and where they earn a living. The possibilities are endless. But we also know to reach consumers where they are, that we need to continue to innovate to make materials more culturally, contextually, and linguistically sensitive. On our next slide, you'll see a visual representation of our vision, MyPlate everywhere in everyday life. A poster in an office as a part of worksite wellness, but you would also need to adopt, knowing in many, including myself, increasing work from home. Also in the pediatrician's office, though we also need to innovate to be a part of telehealth approaches on the grocery store receipt in the store, or increasingly via email, we'd aim to have a QR code to shop simple with MyPlate for budget-friendly food ideas. Another idea is that my goal as a mom is to ensure that every school or college campus lunchroom or dining hall for our students to see MyPlate and that they are empowered with age-appropriate healthy eating tips. Also, when we think about culturally sensitive marketing for college students living in a dorm with limited kitchen equipment. In addition, as a mom, I'm excited how we are exploring within childcare centers and after school programs fun educational ways for teachers and students to engage with MyPlate. And we are also working to better integrate into public transportation, libraries, and community centers. We recently launched a MyPlate Instagram page, which I am so excited about. So we are expanding our reach via social media. Please connect with us and highlight your participation in today's webinar and your work to make MyPlate a household name. If you haven't done it already, just whip out your phone and follow us on Instagram at MyPlate_gov. Again, the possibilities are endless, but we will not get there without the help of EFNEP and SNAP-Ed. Therefore, a large part of our efforts are to raise awareness, like today among our USDA partners, about the ways that we can help build awareness around MyPlate. And I know that many of you here today have been working on making MyPlate a household name since the symbol's inception more than 10 years ago. A foundational part of our efforts has been to provide key stakeholders like all of you with the opportunity to share success stories and identify opportunities that exist for MyPlate in nutrition education to increase health equity. We have hosted 5 listening sessions thus far. Our first was at Fancy, as you can see in this picture, last fall, and as noted earlier, we were at the National EFNEP meeting a few weeks ago. I was not able to attend ASNA in person to host a listening session, but we aim to be at other national key conferences this year, so you might be able to see me again. We want to hear from you. So in closing, I want to thank all of those who have engaged in our listening sessions to date and encourage you to reach out as we build out 7 regional listening sessions coming this summer. I am so grateful to all of you for all the work that you do to advance food and nutrition security, help us reach the ambitious White House goals to end hunger, improve nutrition and physical activity, and reduce diet-related diseases, and to help make MyPlate a household name. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me. My email address is simply my name, caree.cotwright@usda.gov. Now I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Fleischhacker so we can transition to our flash talks today and listen and learn more about all the innovative ways that each of you are helping us to make MyPlate a household name. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Cartwright. You can see between our leadership at NIFA with Dr. Toombs and our leadership on the Food and Nutrition Security Initiative overall, and then specifically on making MyPlate a household name. We are well positioned with our 2 leaders, Dr. Toombs and Dr. Cartwright. And hopefully, again, she gave all of you guys food for thought about ways we can work together going forward. Now I have the privilege to transition us to our flash talks. We are going to start off with Christine Rodneck from Iowa State University. I'm going to pass it off to you, Christine.
All right, thank you, Dr. Fleischhacker. It's nice to join you, everyone. As she said, my name is Christine, and I am a State Nutrition Program Specialist at Iowa State University Extension and Outreach, and I'm really pleased today to be able to share some of the MyPlate features that we use at Iowa State University and how we highlight MyPlate in the various parts of our programming. So if you can go ahead and advance the slide. One more. So my role is to coordinate EFNEP and SNAP-Ed programming here with Iowa State University. And FNEP and SNAP-Ed are both funded through USDA for anyone who may not be familiar with them. FNEP is part of NIFA and SNAP-Ed is funded by the USDA Food and Nutrition Service, as well as in our state, Health and Human Services here in Iowa. And though through both of these programs, we aim to help Iowans with lower income make healthy choices within financial constraints that are often difficult. So we can move on to the next slide, and I'll share some of the examples of how we include MyPlate in our various education and outreach strategies. So starting with our youngest participants, our kindergarten through 5th graders, we have youth lessons that we deliver with this audience, and the curriculum we use is called Kids in the Kitchen. It was created at the University of Missouri. And Kids in the Kitchen has a lesson for each food group, and also kicks off learning about MyPlate with an activity where children match foods to the plate using a big poster where they can stick food to it. Gives children the opportunity to share about their favorite foods in each food group, their favorite foods, period. And sometimes we're able to do some education about which food group those foods belong in. And during that lesson, we also often make a recipe called Wraps Your Way, where the children essentially make a wrap and they've got a bunch of different ingredients they can choose from. And it's a good opportunity to talk about the different food groups and how they could aim to get all of the food groups into their wrap to make a complete MyPlate meal or snack with their wrap. We also have a website that we run here at Iowa State called Spend Smart, Eat Smart. At the end of my slides, you'll see I put a QR code if you want to be able to access that website. And I believe it'll be in the chat as well. But so there's a youth tab or kids tab on Spend Smart, Eat Smart that has a drop down called games. And one of our newer games is called Food Group Frenzy. And it uses MyPlate where you can drag foods onto the plate and it times you. So you can try to beat your time. And if you make a mistake, it asks you to try again until you classify all the foods correctly. If we advance the slide, you can see a screenshot of what the game looks like. So you can see here, I already pulled bananas, sweet potatoes, and chicken over onto the plate, but you can see what I have left to pull in and how I can try to beat my time each time I play the game. The foods that you pull in are different for each game. So children do get the chance to try with some foods maybe that they hadn't used in the game before. So Food Group Frenzy is a real fun game. Also on that kids tab, you'll find just a large icon of MyPlate where children or their parents can click in and see information about the food groups that is written in really child-friendly language as well. So moving on to talking about MyPlate inclusions for adults. So we also serve, and our primary audience for our nutrition education programming is adults. And we offer lessons on each food group as part of our adult series, but we also really focus our meal planning education around MyPlate. And in fact, the meal planning worksheet that we use in our program and that we make available for people to use at home has check boxes at the bottom that allow people to kind of check their meal or their day against the different food groups of MyPlate. So if we click ahead one slide, you'll be able to see what that meal planner looks like. This is just a snapshot of the PDF. But you can see there at the bottom of each day, there's a checkbox for the different food groups. And so as I'm going about planning my day, I can check and make sure, do I have representation from each of those food groups? And if I don't, try to work it in later in the week. So this meal planner is just a way that we introduce meal planning, get people used to doing it, and really practice that idea of when you're meal planning, thinking about the food groups of MyPlate and trying to represent those throughout your day. So one other feature on our website that we consider to be for adults is our aisle by aisle section, which you can see here is also built around the 5 food groups. Each of those buttons that you see on the screen is clickable. And when you click in, it will give information about recommended amounts of each of the food groups, and it'll also highlight inexpensive ways to meet the needs in each food group, as well as some considerations. So for example, with proteins, getting variety of proteins. With grains, remembering that you should aim to have at least half of your grains be whole grains and how to identify those. So this aisle by aisle section is really built around the principles of MyPlate. And then the last kind of audience I wanted to talk about is the audience that we primarily serve through our SNAP-Ed policy systems and environmental change efforts, which for our agency are really focused on food pantry environments. So we have a team of staff called Healthy Food Access Specialists who work with food banks and food pantries on coaching initiatives, where a food bank or pantry can ask to meet with our specialists, and they'll come in and do a simple assessment that helps the pantry see what they're already doing really well in terms of making their pantry a health promoting environment, but it'll also point out some things that they could do to kind of up their game. And any of those changes that the pantry is interested in doing, our staff are trained to be able to coach them through those changes. And some of these changes are putting shelf talkers in place that help shoppers in the food pantry identify particular types of food. So it might be putting, for example, this protein one that you can see on the screen here. It might be putting that next to different protein foods on the shelf. And it also has the tip on it of how to start with cooking dried beans. You also see a fruit and vegetables one that can be added as a little piece of education alongside the fruits and vegetables that are available at the pantry. All of these have, you can see the MyPlate imagery on them. All of our pantries also receive a large MyPlate poster that is positioned somewhere in the pantry so that those who are interested in kind of looking at their basket or their cart and thinking about how well they've done with finding the different food groups in the pantry are able to do that using the poster. Our specialists also do a strategy called meal bundling, where we work with the foods that are available at the pantry at any given time, and we bundle those foods into what would be a multi-component meal that hits multiple MyPlate food groups. We have found that a lot of our clients at food pantries are maybe inclined to eat more of one thing at a time. So if I find a box of macaroni and cheese, I might make that and make that my dinner. So the meal bundling is meant to show folks how they can combine different foods that are available in the pantry to make a meal that represents more of the food groups. So this is a really effective strategy that our healthy food access specialists do. And sometimes if the circumstances align right, they will also prepare that meal and offer it for tastings in the food pantry so people can really get excited about what they're taking that day. So moving on to my last slide, I just had my contact information here for anybody that's interested in learning more about any of these ideas. But as you can see, MyPlate's really baked into a lot of what we do in our nutrition education and healthy food access programming. And that QR code that's here on the screen will also take you to the Spend Smart, Eat Smart website if you're interested in that. But I also see the links are also in the chat. So thanks everyone for your time.
That was a wonderful flash talk, Christine, and an outstanding work you guys are doing at Iowa State University. I have the opportunity now to transition us to our next flash talk led by Elizabeth Watts at the University of Colorado.
Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Watts, and I'm here with my colleague, Deanna Laflamme, and we work for the Rocky Mountain Prevention Research Center, which is part of the Colorado School of Public Health. And we are here today to share with you how we incorporate MyPlate into one of our community programs, Text to Live Healthy. Go ahead, next slide. Go ahead to the next one. Before I begin sharing about Text to Live Healthy, I wanted to give you some background on all of our programming and how they all align. So the Rocky Mountain Prevention Research Center is a SNAP-Ed implementing agency here in Colorado, and we have multiple programs that support the SNAP-Ed goals of increasing fruit and vegetable consumption and water consumption, as well as increasing physical activity. And the content of our programs is all aligned with those goals. Our main programming is classroom-based nutrition education for preschools and elementary schools across Colorado. And we also offer support with policy, system, and environment changes in and around those schools. Additionally, we offer parent education through a workshop series, Text-to Live Healthy, and other community outreach programs. We'll go ahead to the next slide. Thank you. So Text to Live Healthy is a text messaging intervention that was developed several years ago to provide a homeschool connection for our classroom-based youth education. It was designed for families with preschool and elementary age children, and really is intended to influence behavior change for the whole family. The messages target participants' knowledge, attitude, goal setting, and environmental constraints to make those behavior changes. And our messages are currently in English and Spanish, with Dari coming to one of our campaigns later this year. And Text to Live Healthy was accepted into the SNAP-Ed Toolkit in 2020. Okay, go ahead. Next one. The text messages that our subscribers get include resources and tips to help motivate them to either make or maintain behavior change. They include family-friendly, creative, and budget-friendly recipes to cook at home with the family, videos, links, really and other interactive resources such as quizzes. We also include information about local wellness-related events and seasonal recipes. And each month or so, after a series of messages, the participants get several evaluation questions that ask them about their goal setting and behavior change based on those messages. Next slide, please. Text to Live Healthy is a 3-year intervention with each year's messages building on the previous year's messages. So in the first year, the focus is foundational knowledge, goal setting, and making changes as a family. And in this year, participants receive 2 to 3 intervention messages per week. And all participants, regardless of where they are in the intervention, receive local messages, the same local message as everybody else in that geographic area. In the second year, participants receive messages that support healthy eating, food resource management, as well as taking what they've learned to be a health champion for their families and communities. And the number of messages the second year is reduced to 1 to 2 per week. And again, folks get those same local messages if they're in the geographic area. And then finally, in year 3, the focus is food safety, food resource management, stress management. We include mindful eating and family engagement, and again, the local messages, and they get 1 message per week in the final year. And then once people are finished with that 3rd year, they just receive the local messages. Next slide, please. So since we launched Text to Live Healthy, we've seen that there is a need for our messages to be adapted for different communities in Colorado. Our core school and family-based campaign is our largest, with over 4,000 subscribers. That includes the intervention as well as those who have completed the intervention. And this campaign is what supports the homeschool connection. We've also worked with the State Unit on Aging here in Colorado to develop a campaign specifically for older adults that meets their unique nutrition and physical activity needs. And this campaign has a couple hundred subscribers. And in collaboration with community navigators, we adapted our core campaign for English-speaking refugees in Colorado. And this has about 600 subscribers. And currently, year 1 of this campaign is being translated into Dari. And finally, we have a community-based campaign with a target audience of adults. We heard from community members that they didn't necessarily have children, but would love to have the resources and the information. So we're currently in the process of adapting that for adults. Okay, next slide, please. So within our library, we have incorporated as many MyPlate resources as we can. I've added some sample messages here that focus on MyPlate. And these messages that I've included are all from the first year of the intervention. I'll read just one of them. Oops, sorry, just lost my screen. Did you know that MyPlate recommends making your plate, have your plate fruits and veggies? MyPlate can help your family explore a healthy eating style that works for all of you. Watch this video for more information. And then the link just takes folks to a MyPlate message. And then as you can see from the other messages, we try to incorporate a variety of resources. The second message highlights that MyPlate quiz that was shared earlier. The third uses the Shop Smart resources. And then the fourth shares the Kitchen Time Saver resource. And the last highlights a PDF with some sodium recommendations. So that's just a sample of what we include. And this is an example of one of our local messages that we actually send to everybody in the state. And you can see it's from MyPlate Kitchen. So when I get these messages seasonally, I like to share them with our participants. And this message will highlight MyPlate Kitchen spring budget-friendly and family-friendly recipes. And we'll actually be sending this message next week. As I said, it'll go to all of our subscribers, regardless of where they are in the intervention. Okay, next slide, please. So moving forward with Text to Live Healthy, we're working on adding more visuals, which includes MyPlate infographics and any other graphics we can find. We try to make things as visually appealing as possible to increase engagement. We've heard from our community members that they enjoy the visuals and that they think it's a helpful way to get information. So we're also working on reducing barriers for information, which means, for example, putting as much information into the text messages itself, so folks don't have to take multiple steps to get to information. And then we're always looking to make sure our messages are have the most up-to-date information. And in our refugee campaign, we have drafted a series of messages that focus on MyPlate recommendations and resources. It's about a month's worth of messages, and we're finalizing these messages and are going to adapt them to our other campaigns as well. Okay, the last message. That's all I have. Thank you all for having me, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or would like any more information.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Dina, for joining us as well. You guys are doing tremendous work in Colorado, and greatly appreciate your guys' time and sharing your journey today. Now we're going to transition over to the University of Massachusetts, where Lucrecia, she's going to help me, Bauer is here today to showcase their work.
Great. Next slide, please. Well, hi, everyone. The University of Massachusetts Extension Program, we utilize SNAP-Ed as well as EFNEP in order to highlight MyPlate. So the beginning of every single one of our lessons, that's the first thing that we do for adults and youth, is to talk about MyPlate as well as interweave MyPlate through different lessons, talking about each food group as well. So in our Show Me Nutrition, one of our lessons is the Show Me Chef, and it's introducing the food groups. And one thing that we do as well is we have a game as well that we've created on Jamboard in order to highlight different food groups and having foods from different cultures to discuss with the class. Next slide, please. And we also highlight different food groups in our choices curriculum, steps towards healthy choices. So we have a lesson plan for every single food group and highlighting each area as well. Next slide. So again, with our choices, highlighting fruits and vegetables in this slide as well. Next slide, please. And this is from our Jamboard game. So we highlight dairy and we'll have each food group and try to have things that are representative of each. And in our dairy section, we always highlight different plant-based alternatives that individuals can use in order to get their dairy intake. Next slide, please. For our grains as well, we try to include some foods that are used depending on the region. So we're located all over the state and we serve a multitude of different populations. So we really try to make an effort to have things that are from different cultures. So you can see we have different types of tortillas. We have, I believe, pupusas and different things that relate to different cultures and kind of discuss how your cultural foods fit into MyPlate. I think that's something we talk about often to make sure that all of our participants understand that any foods that they have fit into MyPlate and how they fit. I know often we talk about single ingredients, and we're finding that many of our participants are eating meals that are a mix of all of the ingredients. So highlighting maybe participants' favorite meal and how that is broken up into MyPlate. Next slide, please. Again, with protein, we try to highlight a variety of different types of protein in our Jamboard game. So really discussing how do these different proteins fit, and making sure that we also highlight some plant-based materials as well. Next slide, please. So different fruits as well, we try to highlight from an array of different cultures that maybe aren't highlighted as much in other areas. And it's really just our opportunity to talk about what's relevant to their culture as well. Next slide, please. And then this is our vegetable slide for our Jamboard game, really discussing different types of veggies that are happening to be in different cultures. We've highlighted yucca, plantains, things that are typical in some of the regions that we teach. What we found is for our adults, we love discussing MyPlate and really connecting it to how they can meal prep and plan, as well as how they can, change meals that are culturally relevant to them to be the most nutritious meal as possible. So how are there ways they can include other pieces of the MyPlate into their diet?
Well, now I have the opportunity to thank Mrs. Bowers for a wonderful overview, quick overview of the University of Massachusetts. We're going to move a little bit further east and go to the University of Rhode Island, where we have a team of Sarah, Stephanie, and Fatima joining us today.
All right. Hi, everyone. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. So my name is Stephanie Carlisle, and my colleague Fatima Tobar will also be speaking today. We are SNAP-Ed community nutrition educators in Rhode Island. And I want to begin by saying thank you for having us today. It's an enormous privilege to be speaking among so many experts in the field who are deeply committed to inspiring actionable strategies and solutions that foster positive change to food and nutrition security within our communities. Fatima and I are so excited to share a bit about our effort, an effort our SNAP-Ed office has engaged in over the past 4 years to promote equity, inclusion in our workplace and our community programs called the Culturally Relevant Recipe Project. So this all started with a project a culinary student was working on with us to identify the diversity or lack thereof of flavors and ingredients in our recipe database. And this brought to light that the recipes, materials, and resources that we typically used out in the community were potentially not all that relevant to the individuals and families that we serve. It made us question the efficacy of our messaging and whether we were making an impact on those who have dietary patterns that don't align with the conventional Western diet. And this project led us to develop a strategic plan for broadening the cultural influences in our recipes and for ensuring that our staff had a more comprehensive understanding of the diversity of food cultures they encounter in our state. Next slide, please. We can just take a quick look at our agenda for the day. We will move through these fairly quickly.
So a big part of the work that we were doing with this new project was really making sure that we as educators were well-versed on these terms that you see here on the screen. So cultural exchange, we know, can be defined as the beneficial sharing of cultures, beliefs, customs, traditions, to better understand one another through equal sharing and mutual respect. We know that this phenomenon can happen naturally and out of admiration, genuine curiosity, as it contributes to diversity and natural free expression in the community. Now, when we started our culturally relevant recipes for our audiences, we felt it was important that our recipes reflect the cuisines that individuals are actually eating in the home with their families. It was important that we kept the recipes as authentic as possible. We wanted to honor the traditional preparation methods of that culture by only making small tweaks to improve the nutritional value, such as reducing salt and fat, but by no means did we want to take the traditional dishes and present them as fancier, better, or elevated. We learned about so many delicious recipes and cultures just from engaging with our communities here in Rhode Island. And that was a very beautiful example of a cultural exchange that happened organically. Whereas cultural appropriation, we know it to be taking the culture of another party and applying it without that respect or that knowledge of the culture's true meaning. Now, this inaccurate portrayal of a culture can be hurtful, it can be offensive, especially when you see aspects of your culture misplayed out. Whether this happens accidentally or not, we wanted to be really aware of the language that we were using in describing these initiatives, these recipes, and even just communicating why we wanted to do this in the community. We often have lots of children and adults that have migrated to this country from all sorts of backgrounds and culture. So it was important for us, especially walking into elementary school classrooms where children weren't really comfortable with the language even, that we respected their origin, that we respected their background and the foods that they know and love. Next slide, please.
So I want to provide comprehensive insights into the complexities of the culturally relevant recipe project. And the first essential component is data collection. So in the later part of 2020, we started collecting information from our program participants about countries and regions they feel culturally connected to. It is completely optional for people to participate, and their responses are anonymous as well. And so far, we've had 1,925 respondents, and from that sample, 87 different countries, regions, religions, cultures have been mentioned. Next slide. So from that data, we prioritize the most frequently mentioned countries and areas to focus on, and have set about researching their history, culture, and food practices in order to put together country spotlight trainings for SNAP-Ed staff and students. We have used a combination of peer-reviewed resources as well as more informal firsthand sources such as blogs, YouTube videos, and input from our community partners and our own staff members to get the information. Nutrition students and dietetic interns have been essential to this part of the project, doing much of the time-consuming research we need to put these trainings together. We have done 12 country spotlight trainings so far, as well as a handful of food spotlights on staple ingredients such as cassava, plantains, and jackfruit, in order to further understand the diversity of foodways of the communities we work with. These trainings have proven instrumental in equipping our staff members with the knowledge and confidence to address questions pertaining to customary cultural cuisines and proper recommendations for the utilization and handling of ingredients prevalent in the households of our community members. Next slide. So the next aspect of this project is recipe testing. So this aspect of the project is meant to serve a dual purpose. First, to educate our staff about a wider variety of cooking methods, ingredients, and flavors from around the world. And second, to add more diversity to the recipes we use in our programming, so that a broader range of our participants see their cultures reflected in our lessons. And we have to take care to balance traditional cooking methods and ingredients with a need to make our recipes accessible to our SNAP-Ed audience in terms of ease of preparation, availability of ingredients and kitchen equipment, and of course, cost. And the process of recipe testing has been incredibly valuable for discussion and learning purposes. So for example, most of us in the office did not know how hard it was to peel a green plantain, or that you can buy a bag of mixed frozen vegetables, especially for Dominican sancocho at some grocery stores. Next slide. So I do want to provide some visual aids to support our recipe development efforts for this project. And over the next 3 slides, I'll show you some behind the scenes images that capture some of our dynamic office trainings, recipe testing, and examples that illustrate how we've integrated our recipes within the community, all while collecting feedback. So here you'll see images of our pupusas, like Lucretia had mentioned in the last presentation. And pupusas are a traditional dish from El Salvador that is similar to a masa dough griddle cake with a variety of fillings such as cheese, beans, meat, or veggies. For this particular recipe, Fatima's abuela and Tia visited our office for several in-service trainings on how to properly craft this dish. They also helped with the development of a written recipe that fit our recipe guidelines while staying true to traditional ingredients and methods of prep. Next slide. Okay, so this slide depicts how we've tested recipes out in the community. So featured here are photos of our cachupa recipe, which is a hearty Cape Verdean stew, typically consisting of hominy, beans, cassava, fish, or meat, and other vegetables, though there are regional variations. And these images show our staff presenting a professional development training to the phys ed and health teachers of the Providence Public School District. And we actively involve them by passing around cultural ingredients such as cassava, okra, and chilies commonly used within our community households. And they sampled our cachupa recipe. Our aim was to familiarize them with these ingredients and the recipe, empowering them with the knowledge about foods relevant to the children that they teach. And during this event, a Cape Verdean phys ed and health teacher remarked that our recipe closely resembled the one his mother has been trying to perfect over years of preparation. And such feedback is really invaluable and underlines the significance of testing our new recipes with those well-versed in those traditional dishes. And we do have an upcoming opportunity to further refine this recipe by testing it at a local Cape Verdean church. And this opportunity will offer key insights into its accuracy and potential areas for enhancement. Next slide. All right, so within our office, we hosted 2 professional development days where we prepared some of our new CRRP recipes for culturally relevant recipe project recipes for staff members and invited them to take part in producing the recipe. Recognizing that many of our recipes incorporated ingredients or cooking techniques unfamiliar to some, these in-office trainings were really essential. So they help to prompt meaningful conversations around food and culture, and they give our staff the confidence to produce these recipes out in the community. So in the middle of the slide is a moment shared between myself and Patrick Vivier, the Dean of URI College of Sciences. He paid a visit to our Community Nutrition Education Office in Providence to learn about our engaging programs in the community and participated in a recipe demonstration using one of our new culturally relevant recipes, Rellenitos de Plátano, a Guatemalan dessert made from sweet mashed plantains stuffed with a mixture of black beans, chocolate, and cinnamon, then lightly pan-fried. So this opportunity offered the dean an understanding of our dedicated efforts to support and infuse cultural relevance within our programming, as well as our commitment to inclusivity and diversity. Next slide. And then the last step in this process is to post our new recipes to the URI SNAP-Ed website and start using them in our community programs. So here are some of the snapshots of the recipes we have developed so far. In total, 33 new recipes have been developed as part of this project, with another 6 currently in process. As we use them in the community, we gather feedback from participants about the taste and accuracy. We have seen so many benefits for our staff and our SNAP-Ed program as a whole. Our educators have been very committed to the intent of the project and are eager to continue learning about other cultures in order to better understand and connect with the individuals in their workshops. Program participants have been overwhelmingly eager to share where they're from and what some of their families' favorite foods are. And our community partners are excited that we have expressed a commitment to making our community nutrition programs more inclusive. Next slide.
Now, aside from the ethical reasons of developing cultural competence, it's important to note that cultural competency will make us more effective educators with the work that we do. There is growing evidence supporting the idea that understanding a program participant's culture will make them more likely to accept and adhere to the guidance that we recommend. Understanding culture is essential for the work that we do, considering that food is a powerful symbol of cultural identity, and this will therefore influence their values, their beliefs, and practices related to food, even considering the interconnection of culture and religion and the role that it plays in nutrition education. Next slide, please. Now, the impact on MyPlate messaging is very, very influential when we do incorporate culturally diverse food models through our lessons, through the images on handouts, through the activities, as we can see that they all resonate with all of our audiences. For example, bringing in a memory game that has all of the pictures in English and in Spanish makes such a difference for a child who is already struggling to understand this new foreign language. Now, this helps to make MyPlate more relatable, functional, and it provides recommendations that are sustainable. This will ultimately help us foster trust, relationships, getting a sense of what the kids do enjoy, what they like. And this is all helpful in inspiring our communities to make the healthier choices with the foods that they're already familiar with. We see this to be a tremendous success with the groups that Stephanie was just mentioning earlier with our Cape Verdean population that we have here in Rhode Island. And MyPlate can not only be customized to fit dietary needs and budget, but also the personal preferences and cultural traditions, and leveraging the lived experiences of our audiences to continue to make strides towards healthier behaviors. Next slide, please. Now, showing that all foods can fit into MyPlate allows for the recommendations to be more personalized. Next slide. Now, in my teaching experiences over the past 2 years, I've observed such a positive response to our new recipes, and you can see them here photographed. This is our Cape Verdean church group that we've been working with in the last year. And hearing my pronunciation of some ingredients such as atún, cassava, and cachupa, hearing it in their own dialect really gets them excited to participate in all of our education workshops. And then bringing in their parents so that they could also join in on all of the fun has been incredibly rewarding. This connection between the home experiences and the workshops has proven to be really, really effective, and they have been able to come back and tell us all about the recipes that they've been making as a family. We have seen the trust evolve. We've seen all of the healthy behaviors play out, and they've been incredibly helpful in facilitating the delivery of our education messages. We'd like to thank you for your time, and our contact information is available here on the screen if there are any follow-up questions about the process that Stephanie displayed or anything like that.
That was outstanding, Stephanie and Fatima. I said at the start of our prep meeting that I haven't been to Rhode Island. It's one of the few states I haven't been to, but the work you guys are doing, obviously the food you guys are doing, and just really the collaborative way you guys are doing it with your community is really, really inspiring. So thank you for a wonderful flash talk today. I'm going to transition now. We have 2 remaining flash talks from the University of Kentucky and University of Wyoming, and then hopefully I also get our SNAP-Ed highlight from Lauren in as well. So thank you guys for bearing with us as we do lots of flash talks today, but I think all of you guys will see we have a lot going on across the nation. So I'm going to transition now to Brooke Jenkins and also Jean Najer. They are at the University of Kentucky.
Hi, everyone. We can go right on to the next slide, please. My name's Jeannie Najer. I'm a registered dietitian and specialist with UK's nutrition education program. So we implement through both the SNAP-Ed and the FNEP grants. And so we're just going to do a brief overview about how we use MyPlate. So it is truly weaved into every single thing that we do. all of our content, our marketing materials, our trainings. So again, we're just going to do a really high level view of that, and we'll go into a few of our curricula. But just this slide is showing how it is weaved into our, every single curriculum that we develop and that we outsource as well. So we have our core curriculum, and that is our Healthy Choices for Everybody curriculum that we're going to talk about on the next slide, or a few slides away from now. And then our Healthy Choices for Your Recovering Body, which we will also talk about. We have another one called Cook Together, Eat Together for families. We're not going to touch on that as much today, but MyPlate is incorporated into all of those core curriculum that our assistants go and teach. It's also included in our secondary curriculum for specific audiences. So we have certain curricula for people who are pregnant, postpartum. We have supplemental materials for the various food groups. And so of course it's weaved into all of that. And then we have both adult and youth options where their MyPlate is weaved into everything. And then moving on to our marketing materials, our public facing website is called planeatmove.com. And so we have tons and tons of recipes on there, and a blog and lots of other just general health information that I know some of the other states have already shown their versions. And so ours weaves in MyPlate throughout as well. Our social media messaging, we're always going to touch on MyPlate there, our newsletters. And then we have a calendar that is always put out every year, and there's a recipe for each month. And just one example of how we use MyPlate there is we have a side where it says, make it a MyPlate meal. So let's say the recipe is, for a fruit parfait or something. Well, if it didn't include vegetables, there's, a MyPlate recommendation as to how you would include all the food groups for that dish to make it a MyPlate meal. And then in our trainings, our new hire trainings, we are always going to, MyPlate's like probably the first thing that we cover to get that general nutrition background and really start early in making sure that our assistants and our educators are always going back to that as the foundation of what they teach. So many questions that they get can be answered, and I always tell them this, so many questions that they get can be answered with the MyPlate. Even questions, about why am I hungry all the time and things like that. And what should I eat for breakfast? Should I eat breakfast? So many questions can be answered with MyPlate because it is just a balanced, well-rounded meal. All of our curriculum trainings that we do, whether it's for our educators that are SNAP-Ed and EFNEP educators, or those that they're called our agents and they're with Family and Consumer Sciences and 4-H. We always want to give them that good background information. And then professional development for partners as well. We just want, MyPlate is our standard, nutrition background information that we want everybody to go to when they're giving nutrition advice. Next slide, please. And so here's just some of the numbers to show how the reach of KYNEP's MyPlate. Last year, we taught over 30,000 nutrition education lessons, close to, not quite, but close to, we'll round up, 600,000 SNAP and FNEP adult participants were reached through our programming. And so all of them were exposed to MyPlate. And then a little over 300,000 children and youth participants were reached. Moving right along, I think it's going to turn over to Brooke now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brooke Jenkins, and I work as our Extension Specialist for Curriculum with the Nutrition Education Program. And today I wanted to share a little bit about how we use MyPlate in our primary adult curriculum called Healthy Choices for Everybody. You can see here on the screen a brief description of what our core lessons are for the curriculum. And this is a curriculum that our nutrition education assistants used to teach. They are required to teach 7 lessons. And of course, all of those are based on MyPlate. And so even things like food safety or reading food labels, we always refer back to MyPlate whenever we're teaching that, and how we can use MyPlate to create balanced, nourishing meals for their family. And so it's always about creating that balance, creating a meal that has all of the food groups and meeting all the nutritional needs for everyone in the household. The Healthy Choices for Everybody curriculum is part of the SNAP-Ed toolkit. So if you're interested in finding that, we do have a QR code listed there on the screen for you. You're welcome to access that, and we can allow you to check out the curriculum more in depth. You can see some examples here on the screen of our handouts that we use with our participants. It always refers them back to our Plan, Eat, Move website. And then we incorporate the food groups and MyPlate overall in our materials. We do have several different versions available of the curriculum, so we're trying to reach our diverse populations in our state. The curriculum has been translated and also checked for cultural competence in Spanish. Spanish-speaking audiences are our largest diverse or non-English speaking group in our state. And so we have some educators who are Spanish-speaking, and they work in communities with this population. We also have a number of folks in our state who have visual disabilities, and so we do make our materials available in Braille as well. And then for those with lower literacy, some of our recipes have translated over to photographic recipes as well. We have some materials available in Swahili and French, and this is from our previous version of the curriculum. We just updated our curriculum this year, but we did keep the Swahili and French resources available because for the most part, the materials haven't changed or the information hasn't changed too much. And so we wanted to be able to provide that to some of our refugees who are relocated here in Kentucky. We've got some resources available if needed for assistance working with those groups. And then we also plan to translate the curriculum into Japanese. And so we try to be responsive to needs from communities across the state for those who are working with various populations. If there's something needed besides English, we try to accommodate that so that we can be available to various groups across the state. Next slide. So in addition to the 7 required lessons, we also have some supplemental lessons. And so we use the evaluation tools that we use here in Kentucky for our adult, for primarily our adult curriculum for Healthy Choices for Everybody anyway, is the EFNEP EFNEP Adult Questionnaire. And so that evaluation tool focuses on various subjects, and those are the lessons that we teach as the core lessons or the required lessons in the curriculum because they tie directly to the evaluation tool. But we do have some supplemental lessons as well. So even, even if they teach those 7 lessons, participants are welcome to continue on and use other lessons as well. So those will cover our other MyPlate food groups, and then some meal planning and some lessons that are for targeted audiences, such as those who are pregnant or postpartum. They teach these supplemental lessons just as time allows, and these are not required, but a lot of our assistants use it. Next slide. So these are our results from last year for Healthy Choices for Everybody. 97% of our participants showed improvements in healthy eating habits. 80% increased their physical activity. 90% showed improvements in food safety behaviors. And then also 95% showed improvement in 1 or more food resource management practices. So we feel really confident in our Healthy Choices for Everybody curriculum, making meaningful behavior changes with our audience. And again, this is our primary curriculum, and it is used for general adult audiences.
Okay, and then next we're going to briefly touch on one of our other curriculums for adults called Healthy Choices for Your Recovering Body curriculum. I know this is a nationwide problem, but here in Kentucky, we just have such a strong prevalence of substance use disorder, and we have had so many of our educators. I think we started developing this curriculum in 2020, but because we had so many of our educators coming to us telling us that they needed specific materials for this audience. So within this curriculum that we created, we of course incorporated MyPlate throughout, and for this population, MyPlate was such a great resource or tool to lean on as well, because of all that people in recovery are dealing with regulating their hunger cues and learning how to maintain their energy balance and things like that. And so we really rely on MyPlate as a general tool for building balanced meals, regularly timed meals, all of that. So there are 7 core lessons, just like our regular Healthy Choices for Everybody curriculum. And you can see a list here. We include cooking, food safety, of course, using the MyPlate, food labels, shifting towards healthier choices, and then budgeting and what that looks like. Next slide, please. And then just to touch on the pilot results. So lots of good results here showing that it was effective for teaching nutrition, physical activity, food safety, food resource management to audience and substance use recovery. And then we also got just some qualitative data from our educators. There was an overwhelmingly strong response that the curriculum was better suited for audience and substance use recovery, and they were able to partner more with recovery centers because they could come to them and say, hey, we have this curriculum specially developed for your audience. And it just kind of helped build partnerships and get them in the door to places that maybe otherwise they wouldn't have. And then there is even some PFC outcomes from this curriculum, including recovery centers changing the snacks and meals that they served and building them around the MyPlate and making sure that they had balanced meals and incorporating those concepts from our curriculum into their center's food choices. Next slide, please. So here's our contact information. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation of things going on in the University of Kentucky. Now we're going to transition to Wyoming, where we're joined by Wendy and Callie.
Okay, next slide, please. In Wyoming, we incorporate MyPlate messages and MyPlate images into all of our education materials. If you go to the next slide, I think it has into our educational materials, our marketing materials, and then also our PSEs. We really try to focus on the MyPlate key messages and also the MyPlate imagery. And we're going to start with talking a little bit about our marketing and indirect education. And I'm going to turn it over to Kaylee, who is our marketing specialist, and she's done an awesome job of transitioning us from kind of old branding to newer, more colorful branding. And she's also our a manager for the program. So I'll turn it over to you, Kaylee.
Thanks, Wendy. You can go to the next slide. We'll move a little quickly so we have time for everyone. I started with the program in 2015, and at that point in time, our logo was this red bag. It was designed based off of the SNAP logo, but MyPlate was already kind of in existence at that point. And so we felt like modernizing our look and making that alignment between both SNAP and MyPlate was really important. So we redesigned our logo. It's still the grocery bag so that we have that connection to SNAP, but then I color coded it to match with MyPlate. So kind of taking that perspective of the subliminal messaging that happens, and I think marketers use this across the board, but our logo and all of our program materials use MyPlate colors and those MyPlate messages kind of every step of the way. So we've incorporated the MyPlate colors and identity into our logo, and then that's transitioned to our website as well as some of our marketing materials. If you could go to the next slide. So these are some of our marketing materials. We have our recipe card here on the left. At the top, under the title, you'll see that we list out which food groups are part of the recipe so that when these are being given out at places like food pantries or in coordination with TFAP food distributions, recipients can look at that and see which food groups they're hitting, and it helps them to build a healthy plate. All of this really builds off of our curricula, which Mindy will talk about in a little bit. The second thing I have here on the screen, sorry, can you go back, is our food fact flyers. We have a huge local food effort going in the state right now, a lot with garden produce, which is really exciting. And to support those efforts, we created these food fact flyers that talk about the different foods coming in through gardens. On the back side in the nutrition facts section, we always include a MyPlate message and the MyPlate recommendations for the food groups, so that families are getting that information along with the information about the fruit or vegetable they're receiving. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mindy for Direct Ed.
So with our Direct Ed, if you can move to the next slide. MyPlate is the foundation of our curricula for both adults and youth. And we've incorporated MyPlate into all our lesson content, handouts, visuals, and particularly our cookbooks. So next slide, I'll just quickly show you some of our materials. Our welcome folder that every participant gets. And I didn't mention at the beginning, we do SNAP-Ed and FNEP programming in Wyoming. So we cover both programs. So all of our participants with FNEP and SNAP-Ed receive a welcome folder, and then the Building a Healthy MyPlate graphic is on all those folders. And then we also incorporate it into all of our lessons. And one of our lessons does include the MyPlate food groups, and we set goals based around those MyPlate messages and MyPlate food. Next slide. And with our youth, MyPlate logo is very prominent. We have our youth curriculum that is Wyomingized. We have the Bo the Bison and Marty Moose, and so we use both of these in our teaching, and then our letters that go home to parents also include the MyPlate messages and include the recipe of the day and kind of encouraging MyPlate at home as well as in schools. Next slide. So I will, and then this is our cookbook, which again really highlights MyPlate, and all of our handouts come from the cookbook, and then our cookbook really, like I said, highlights the MyPlate and the MyPlate messages, and it's organized by MyPlate food groups. So next slide, I will turn it over to Kaylee to talk a little bit about our PSEs program.
Awesome. So MyPlate is part of our PSE work with partners. We work a lot with food pantries and childcare centers. And just in the last year, we've seen an increase in partners asking for more information about MyPlate and the 5 food groups. So in our toolkits for these partners, we encourage meals and food choices to follow with MyPlate. And then we have supporting materials like posters and signage related to MyPlate. So if you want to go to the next slide. This is for our food pantry project. It's called the Healthy Food Pantry Project. The top picture that's purple is meant to be a large, if you have your food pantry organized in sort of a grocery store style, it's meant to be one of the like aisle signs for it. And these, the frutas and the vegetables one are shelf talkers, and this bottom one in red is actually for the grocery store. We've worked with some grocery stores on healthy donations. And so we have donation cards that fit in the channel strips organized by food groups, so that when community members are in the grocery store, they can help purchase those healthy foods that align with MyPlate to donate back to the food pantries. Next slide, please. And then these are some of our posters. We have versions of this for both food pantries and childcare centers or schools. Our first one is the MyPlate one, and then there's one for each food group. These are our slightly dated ones. All of them will be getting updated. We have a new toolkit for food pantries that incorporates MyPlate more so into it. And so the supporting materials are all being updated to align with that. And then the last kind of piece we have for supporting our food pantries is a donation brochure. So say they're doing a food drive or working with the community to get food donated. These are recommendations of different foods you can donate per food group, so that the MyPlate food groups are available in the food pantries and that those are the healthiest versions of those foods that can be offered. And next slide. So on the horizon, I'm working on our website right now. It is designed to support MyPlate, but we would like to put the MyPlate widget on there. Like I said, we're updating our tools for food pantries and for schools, and we have some one-time recruiting lessons or sort of marketing lessons designed for adults and youth, as well as some specialty groups. And we use MyPlate as the foundation of that, so that it's sort of the starting point for everyone who enters our program. I think that is it. These are all the places you can connect with us. We do MyPlate messages on all of our social media and in our newsletters.
That was wonderful, and I greatly appreciate both of you guys kind of being graceful at the end of keeping things short. We do have one other presenter today, Lauren Sweeney, who's going to kind of highlight a couple of examples. Oh wait, sorry, we have two more. Sorry, we're going to transition to Utah State. I do want to recognize we were going to 2:30 today. So I do want to lift up that we'll have Utah State and Lauren present today. So we are recording this. So if you have to jump off early, please do. Just know we'll record it. And then I'll do a couple QAs to round up our webinar with our group. Do know it's recorded. So if you have to jump off early today, please do. But just for the sake of our group today, we're going to have both of our final presenters present. Do a little QA and feel free to use the QA button to leave any questions in there. They'll get recorded if they're put in there, or otherwise we'll circle back with you at the direct team. So again, appreciate your grace as we go a little over today, but as you can see, we have a lot of great things happening across the nation. I'm going to transition now to our team at Utah State, and then we'll wrap up. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. You can move to that next slide. My name is Lee Palmer. I am the Assistant Director for Create Better Health, which is Utah's SNAP-Ed program. And I'm here with Heidi LeBlanc, who is our director, just to highlight some of the things that we're doing in Utah to make MyPlate a household name through a comprehensive approach. So grateful for opportunity to squeeze us in to alongside some other great work across the country. So when Heidi was structuring our program, she really leaned into that comprehensive approach. This is a model that we use almost as a map for the programming that we do. And at every layer, from the actual partnerships and the channels we go through to the classes and activities that we do, MyPlate is at the center of everything. And so you can hop to that next slide. And so I'd like to go through each of our main pillar program areas and just highlight how MyPlate is integrated into each of those areas. So we do embrace those three pillar areas of PSE work, direct education, social marketing. And through each one, we try to highlight how MyPlate can be used as a tool. So in our policy system environmental work, we aim to make that healthy choice the easier choice. And these projects are customized based off our community needs. So every county looks a little bit different, but one commonality between all the projects is MyPlate. We'll do healthy food drives focusing on MyPlate food groups. We support food pantries by filling their shelves and teaching customers about how to use MyPlate to select healthier options. We rotate our school cafeteria bulletin boards with interactive lessons on MyPlate. And you can see in these pictures some of the examples with our PSE coordinator, state coordinator, leading the way in that second picture. Next slide. And then another PSE project that we highlight throughout the state is our community gardens. We help establish community gardens and kind of create a self-sustainable system that helps improve access to a variety of options for those fruit and vegetable categories. Next slide. Within social marketing, we have reels, we have recipes, examples, tips, all for making MyPlate part of our everyday life. So right now we have our campaign, Your Plate, Your Way, and that emphasizes the importance of leaning into those individual and cultural preferences and creating a MyPlate that is exciting and empowering for individuals. Next slide. Perfect. And along those same lines, this is within social marketing, direct education, and PSU work. Our refugee programming uses MyPlate as a tool, teaching our new Utah refugees tips for making healthy choices and navigating this American food system while maintaining their cultural food preferences. Our state refugee coordinator, so she's pictured up on the top right, helps support that translation to our different refugee groups to elevate culture within MyPlate. Slide. Right, and these are some examples of our marketing materials. Our Create Better Health uses our CREATE system, and that is a concept that we teach that helps use MyPlate as a tool for making healthy choices with foods that are already in the pantry, foods that are on sale, and or foods that are available at the food pantries. These concepts are woven through all the different materials and programming to support those pillar areas. Next slide. Perfect. And then lastly, but not least, we have our direct education for adults and for youth. The direct education provides a space to emphasize MyPlate in a variety of formats. So some examples that we've listed here is that it can include setting up a visible classroom environment where MyPlate images are posted. We can get participants set up on the USDA MyPlate apps so that there's continued support even after the class ends. We help participants identify food groups and practice that during group activities, and then giving those tips for making healthy food choices. And next slide. So from that adult education, I guess from the previous one, 54% of participants have reported using MyPlate more to make healthy food choices during the actual course itself. And then we followed up 6 months later, and 62% were still using MyPlate after graduation. So going into our youth programming, all of our youth programming highlights our superhero, Captain Create, who's on a mission to use MyPlate as a tool to change the world. So Captain Create shows up in our youth direct education and social media, all teaching MyPlate concepts in a fun and engaging way. And through a variety of that youth programming, we've seen both short-term and long-term impact on young children recognizing food groups and what foods belong to those food groups. Go ahead, next slide. Perfect. So overall, MyPlate is more than just a couple food groups to live by. It's a starting point, and it's a tool that empowers individuals to make healthy choices in a way that empowers their individual and cultural preferences. Through the comprehensive approach that Utah uses and many other states use, we've seen some incredible success stories of individuals and families making MyPlate a household name and making incredible steps towards a healthy and sustainable future.
Thank you, Utah State. And I apologize. I was writing my alphabet after and I realized I missed you. So sorry about that. You guys are doing wonderful things. I'm happy. Many were graceful to stay on a little late to hear what their work you're doing. And then Lauren, again, last but not least, I do want to have you highlight your role and then particularly some of the work you want to lift up from some of the other states.
Great, thank you so much. So my name's Lauren Sweeney, and I am the coordinator for the Land-Grant University SNAP-Ed Program Development Team. And so I'm here on behalf of land-grant universities from across the country who conduct SNAP-Ed. So next slide, please. And so in this current year, we've got 59 states, including as well as Guam and the District of Columbia, conducting SNAP-Ed programming. And I can confidently say that all are using MyPlate to engage with participants. And so if you've heard from some of these universities today, and some of these remarkable programs that they're conducting. But quickly, I'm going to share 3 additional programs that are utilizing MyPlate. So one's utilizing MyPlate with nutrition education, one with the social marketing campaign, and finally one around enhancing the lived environment. Next slide, please. So Dr. Cartwright mentioned MyPlate replaced my pyramid in 2001. And so I was a graduate student at the time working on a curriculum at the University of Florida called Youth Understanding My Pyramid. But we quickly pivoted when that came out and changed it to Youth Understanding MyPlate. And that program has expanded since and is still being utilized by the University of Florida to conduct SNAP-Ed programming. They're using it with their pre-kindergarten through 5th graders, as well as they have a middle school curriculum called Yummy, Youth Understanding My Plate Exploration Edition, which is utilizing more of science experiments to teach about My Plate. But this is a video that's embedded here that we're not able to watch, but I think we're going to try to work on that on the final version of the presentation so that that's available. But the link is there where you can learn more about the YUM curriculum and some contact information to reach out to Carla Shellnut, who runs the program at the University of Florida. Next slide, please. And so next I've got a Food Hero is a multi-channel social marketing campaign that aims to meet SNAP-Ed goals through the work at the direct education level, but also through work with the policy, systems, and environmental levels. Oregon State University publishes a monthly newsletter, the Food Hero Monthly, which is found on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. And there are a number of resources on the foodhero.org website there, including recipes, gardening tips, and education, information on physical activity, and then also some video nutrition lessons featuring MyPlate. So here's also a link of one of many videos they have that focuses on the protein food group. And so if you're interested in learning more about Food Hero, please check out their website there, and there's some contact information for those at Oregon State University. And then next slide, please. And I am flying through these to try to keep up with time. So finally, this project was a multi-state project created for use with food pantries. And so we've heard about some other great programs. This one was created through South Dakota State, Purdue, Michigan State University, the Ohio State University, University of Nebraska, and the University of Missouri. So they created the Voices for Food project, which includes it includes multiple items. One is a food council creation guide, but then also a Voices for Food pantry toolkit. That's what I'm going to focus a little bit on here. And it's the toolkit includes nutrition education for staff, volunteers, but also for pantry clients and community members. And so much like what Christine shared earlier with her food pantry initiative, this project utilizes a pantry filing system based on colors of the MyPlate food groups to help assist the food pantry clients in building their plates and choosing items as they're shopping the food pantry that meet each of the food groups. And so here's an example of the color coding of the food groups as part of their My Choice system. That aligns well, again, with the colors on MyPlate. And also MyPlate is displayed throughout the food pantries, is a resource that's displayed throughout the pantries, just to help reinforce those key concepts of MyPlate. And there's a peer-reviewed article, a link for that down, or information citation for that at the bottom of the slide. But if you would like more information on any of these 3 programs that I just quickly went through, or other SNAP-Ed programs at land-grant universities, as I mentioned, they're all using SNAP-Ed, or they're all using MyPlate to meet the clients of SNAP-Ed. Please reach out to me at lauren.sweeney@sdstate.edu, and I'm happy to connect you with the appropriate contacts at the universities. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren, and I'm really grateful that we were able to squeeze you in and you're graceful today, that we did get the full videos in. Again, we have a wonderful set of teams today that provided very flash talk of all the things that they do. Appreciate you being graceful for hanging on a little bit later today. To be mindful of time, I'm going to have all of our teams just jump on gallery view. I haven't seen any questions coming in, but thankfully for Shelly, who's been putting in all the relevant links and all their emails, you should have all of our teams information, both directly to learn more on their websites and also their emails. So please feel free to reach out to these teams. They've all gracefully offered to follow up with you. And you can always feel free to email me. My name is my email, sheila.fleischhacker.usda.gov. Karee's also on here as well in terms of leading our MyPlate work. So feel free to email her any of your big, bold ideas. And also they're open to constructive input. So please don't be shy if there's barriers or challenges that you want to share. I'm going to encourage you, if you have any questions, to put them in. If I don't see any, then I'm really just going to focus in on a couple questions I have to round out the group. And I welcome any of our federal panelists that are on. I know Helen was listening from the background from our FNIP program. Aurora, who's our nutrition education branch chief here on the SNAP-Ed side, she essentially recommended most of these teams and sent her regret because she had a conflicting time today. I do want to have our panelists who remain today, really want you to share something that really excites you about the work ahead with MyPlate, and also share something fun you learned today about another team that you might be like, oh, that gave me food for thought about things I could do and we can do better together. I'm going to have Caree start, and then I'm going to just call on the teams as I see them. So Dr. Cotwright.
I just want to say that I am so impressed with all of the things that you're doing. You're doing exactly what we knew that so many people around the country are doing wonderful things to promote MyPlate. So just thank you so much. Heartfelt thank you for helping us to make MyPlate a household name. I was so impressed with the cultural references and cultural appropriateness of the recipes, the way you have partnered with communities. The bringing in Abuela to make pupusas, I'm just so impressed. And it's really close and near and dear to my heart to use characters to promote nutrition messages to young children. So you're doing that in so many ways and providing innovative messages. And I was just sitting here wondering how we could put this all in one document or make it live on the web so everybody can spread the word about the wonderful work you're doing. So just a heartfelt thanks. I am utterly impressed and just over the moon. So you have just made my day, and please keep the great work up. Thank you.
And we will have the recording ready in about 2 weeks. So please do your part to help disseminate, and also all of our attendees today. So I'm going to transition to Jean. I'm going to have you reflect on something you're excited about and something fun you learned today.
So I really I can echo what I'm sure a lot of people are going to say and what Caree said too about the different cultural project recipes and projects that are going on. I definitely I've wrote down a lot and plan to follow up or look into those all those different projects some more, so that we can adapt some of those and make sure that we do it in a really thoughtful way. Everybody else has already done it in a thoughtful way, so we can just kind of adapt that. And I am most excited about that and appreciate all the hard work and thoughtfulness that everybody has put into their programming.
And Christine?
Thanks, everyone. I loved listening to the sessions today. I did have one point that I failed to make that I regretted as soon as I finished, which was I wanted to credit the University of Illinois, who created the food pantry pieces I showed. The University of Illinois' SNAP-Ed program is who created those pieces. So I wanted to make sure to give them their credit there. As far as what excites me, I was really excited to hear about some of the creative ways MyPlate is being used to show food ways that are different than a typical Western or typical, when we think of an American diet. I think that's really important and something we've been working on here in Iowa. So I'm excited to see some states that are well ahead of us that we can learn from. I was also really pleased to learn about the unique offering for folks in recovery. That's certainly an audience we work with a lot here too. And so I was excited to see another option for service to that audience.
That was awesome. And now I'll move to Kaylee.
I would just echo what Christine said about the audiences in recovery. It's something that our program has been asking for. So I'm excited to hear that there's already a curriculum out there that seems to match a lot of what we do with our program. And then actually the web game that Christine showed with for kids, that matching game, I loved that. And I think it could be we do that in classrooms when we teach our program, but to have that online would be really super fun. So that was exciting for me to hear about.
I was excited about that one too. Now I'll pass it off to Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you. Similar to what people have said before, the cultural recipes are very exciting, and I think that would be great to share, as well as the interactive, like the games. Those are always fun for our participants. So I would echo what others are saying, and I'll see if Deanna had anything else she wanted to.
I was just going to say, I'm so excited to see that we're all doing things with MyPlate, but that's unique to our states and to our audience and to the cultures that are in our states. So that was my takeaway. Very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lauren.
I think the only thing I would add is just how great it's been to hear how we've been including the community's voice in so many of these projects. I think that's been something that has really been highlighted over the past few years, and that shows in the various programs that we're doing.
FNIP and SNAP-Ed does the best, right? I see Helen's hand up.
Yes, I just would first like to say thank you to all of our speakers today, presenters. One thing that really strikes me is where we started, that with all this work that's happening, how great the need is to get this word out. And so sessions like this, how do we amplify the work that you're doing? How do you work together? That's all going to be important, because I know there's great things happening both in EFNEP and SNAP-Ed, and then thinking, okay, then who else are we working with? How else can we really spread the word, as is our charge? And then just a quick comment, kind of a heads up that in July, there is the Society for Nutrition Education Behavior meeting. And EFNIP is going to be hosting a session on cultural adaptiveness. So some of you may be interested in that. It's certainly a work that we're all really embracing, and for some have been embracing for a long time. So again, thank you to all, and just appreciate being a part of this work and working with you and supporting you.
Thank you, Dr. Chipman. As many of you guys know, Helen is our national program leader for FNIP. She gracefully hosted Caree with her team at the National National FNIP conference. And that really is what was the foundation of us doing a webinar, because we heard so many great things. So greatly appreciate that opportunity at the conference, and then this follow-up opportunity to just have a wider reach, both within the live event and also the recording, to hit more of FNIP and also our SNAP-Ed community. Things were moved around, but I want to go back to Lee and see if she has things she wants to share in terms of something fun she's excited about and something she learned about today.
Lily, it was so great to hear some of the examples across the country. I think there's just some really great work, and we talk a lot about how we can build each other up and support each other in this great work. It takes an all hands on deck approach to make a difference. So thank you for everyone who shared some of their experiences and programs. Some things that stood out to me and things that we're excited for in Utah is kind of that community engagement. I loved hearing the example of the recipe development, engaging the community. So it wasn't so much just developing and pushing out, but having the community actually involved with that process. I think that helps with providing those teaching moments for not only our participants, but for us. I think it's always a good opportunity for us to learn what our community is wanting, and there's always things to learn. So I appreciate those examples, and I'm excited to continue help get our community engaged more with the programming that we're developing.
That's exciting. And then Mindy?
Well, I guess I'll echo what everyone else said, but I don't know, Kaylee, if you had a chance to kind of talk about what we were going to do in the future, because we really are looking at incorporating that MyPlate logo and the widget, and really trying to incorporate it more into our website, and really use it more with our educational pieces, and really looking at maybe adding it to, when we do our overall logo, and making sure that it is highlighted. And one thing that our team had brought up, they were on a labeling call, but if there was some way to incorporate that MyPlate logo onto the label, that if we could coordinate that would really help promote that MyPlate logo. So those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Open to FDA, send them. Comments are open to FDA as they work on front of package labeling. So you could always send directly your thoughts on that. And then Ms. Bowers, love to hear your perspectives from UMass.
I really just love what everyone's doing with the cultural piece. What we're finding at UMass is that we are having a change in demographics from a lot of our regions due to influx of different immigrant populations. So I would love to use some of the techniques that I've seen other people using of having the community rewriting some of our recipes and adding in some recipes that we haven't traditionally had, because a lot of our demographics are shifting to like having more Haitian Creole or Venezuelan and not just Mexican or Dominican or Puerto Rican. And, you know, all of those foods are so different. So just trying to include more of that as we see the populations changing.
And last but not least, Heidi.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I love to hear how everybody does things a little bit different and meets the clientele where they're at. The couple things that I wanted to mention is Caree's map that she used of all the touch points. I think that is an incredible tool that we all can embrace and use, because that's how we want to reach our audiences, is all those touch points. And so I like that. I actually screenshot it, even though I can, have that later. And then the other one was Christine mentioned that instead of evaluating, they're being guides, they're coaches helping with in the food pantry. And I think that is an awesome approach when we work with our partners, because that's often they're kind of a little intimidated when we come in to do environmental scans and evaluation, but we're there to just really help. And I always try to, tell our team, the scan is our work, not their work. So if you can teach them that, but the guide or the coach is such an incredible term. So thank you.
Well, again, as Dr. Chipman and Dr. Cartwright said, and again, just echoing Dr. Toombs, and also with us more in background is Dr. Suzanne Saluska, who's with us here at NIFA as well. Just a really heartfelt thank you for all of you guys. Many of you guys gave really candid and helpful feedback during the National EFNEP listening session, during our prep meetings and individual meetings for this webinar today, and hopefully as our future goes forward. As Dr. Chipman alluded to, there will be an EFNEP session at SNAB. There will also be about 10 other sessions that USDA is hosting, including a MyPlate listening session. Caree will also be hosting a listening session in May at the National Health Outreach Conference, and we'll have a variety of other touch points at probably conferences and meetings you guys attend, both in person and virtually. Very much for our attendees and also those listening, both live and during recorded. Really do want to lift up. This is a great time to lean in, both in sharing your successes, your barriers, and also your big, bold ideas for the work going forward. One of the questions that came in, did ask, like, hey, we're going through the dietary guidelines cycle, and we'll have Caree update that in future slides, just so everyone's pretty clear with what's going on with that process. Yes, that does mean we revisit what we're doing with our federal nutrition education materials, because they always need to align with the latest dietary guidelines. So you will see when that draft comes out, how our work adapts to include those latest dietary guidelines. But the exciting part about this dietary guidelines is they are, as Caree pushes, applying a health equity vision to their work. And so we'll have Caree present at SNAB and a couple other conferences virtually and in person, really elevating the work that's going on in the dietary guidelines process. And I think, as you guys can see, of doing that work locally, how you're really helping inform the evidence base for those types of transformations, for cultural, contextual, and linguistic adaptations. You're showing success, that it could be done, and also giving food for thought for ways we can do better together to really address the needs. So again, thank you particularly for your grace with us going over a little today. Knowing this was recorded, I really just wanted to maximize making sure everyone got to present, and also that we had a little bit of time for Q&A after. Again, I welcome any remaining QAs to come in. We will get them answered offline, but really want to just make sure I gave a heartfelt thank you to our team today. The recording and the slides will be available after on our webinar series site. And again, feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions, ideas, or you have success stories that you want to share. As Caree mentioned, she'll be hosting 7 regional sessions, highly happening during the summer, both virtual and in person. So if you have success stories you want to lift up, or the opportunity to engage, or key nutrition educators on your team that you think would be awesome to participate, please don't be shy to recommend them to us. So with that, I'm going to let everyone finally get off a little bit late, but hopefully again, inspired to continue the great work they're doing both locally and across their state. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.